The broadcast crackled to life, stretching across half the galaxy with perfect clarity. On every major planet and station, screens illuminated with the emblem of the Cavern Empire, followed by the familiar sneer of High Strategos Velzer. Draped in regalia polished from the alloys of conquered worlds, he addressed trillions with smug precision. Behind him, an armada of battleships shimmered in formation, over 800 vessels aligned like a silver wall against the stars. The purpose of the transmission was clear: to humiliate Earth. Velzer gestured with theatrical disdain toward a small window on the feed displaying a lone human warship stationed at the outer edge of the neutral zone. The audience burst into derisive laughter. The ship looked outdated, flat gray, no insignias, no protruding weapons, no elegant design. In a fleet-oriented galaxy where size and shine equated power, the Solstice appeared as nothing more than a relic, something forgotten and dragged out of a graveyard. "Behold," Velzer declared, his voice oozing condescension, "the peak of Earth's military pride. They called this thing a dreadnought. We call it a drifting tomb." Subtitles rolled automatically in hundreds of languages as the laughter echoed across countless species. Viewers tuned in from cafes on Zinther, orbital stations around Proxima 4, and amphitheaters on Urok Prime. The feed became a meme in real time. Animated overlays mocked the human ship's shape, comparing it to scrap freighters or ancient submarines. One viral clip looped an AI-generated voiceover that mimicked a human captain panicking over missing coffee rations. Meanwhile, the Solstice remained stationary, silent, unflinching. It did not respond to hails, did not adjust course, did not emit energy beyond baseline systems. Scans returned nothing extraordinary: no exotic shields, no cloaking systems, no crew heat signatures. Galactic analysts called it a bluff. A gesture of pride from a primitive species still new to hyperspace. Velzer's rhetoric escalated. He mocked human history, citing Earth's violent past as evidence of incompetence rather than strength. These creatures warred with sticks, fire, steel, and still managed to nearly wipe themselves out. Now they bring us a relic forged from that same madness and expect respect? A hologram appeared beside him, enlarging the silhouette of the Solstice. With a flick of his hand, Velzer highlighted supposed design flaws: limited turrets, slow engine spindles, no visible drones. He promised to dismantle it live during the next orbital cycle and repurpose the remains as a monument to Cavern's superiority. The crowd roared. Elsewhere in the galaxy, political leaders nodded in agreement. To them, Earth had always been a curiosity, an oddball race that had risen too fast through diplomacy and scientific mimicry. No one feared them. The Solstice became a talking point for comedy shows, news feeds, and even interstellar betting forums, where gamblers placed odds on how fast it would be destroyed. 5 minutes was the favorite. Some predicted it would self-destruct in shame. But amidst all the noise, humanity offered no rebuttal. No Earth ambassadors appeared on screen. No counter-broadcasts aired. Human command channels were closed. Observers noted that even Earth's closest colonies remained eerily silent. Some began to question the strategy. A few intelligence networks speculated that the silence wasn't incompetence, but intent. Whispers of Earth's rapid AI advancement resurfaced. Reports of unexplained sensor anomalies near human space in prior years were reanalyzed. Yet these were drowned out by the dominant narrative: Earth was bluffing, and the Cavern Empire would expose it. Velzer concluded the broadcast with a final flourish. Behind him, his fleet's weapons systems lit up in ceremonial sync, forming a blinding constellation of artificial light. "To the primitive apes of Sol," he said with dramatic venom, "your final lesson begins soon. Your arrogance ends where Cavern precision begins." The feed ended with laughter and applause. The Armada hovered in pristine formation, gleaming and hungry. Across the stars, trillions believed they were about to witness the last breath of a foolish civilization. And still, the Solstice did not move. No response came from Earth. Not a word, not a threat, not a denial. The galactic networks, expecting some desperate plea or retaliation, received only silence. The Solstice remained as it was, motionless at the fringe of the neutral zone, lights dim, no visible activity. That silence became louder than any declaration. Analysts dissected every pixel of the ship's image, hoping for signs of movement, damage, or a hidden signal. Nothing changed. Every scan returned the same conclusion: powered but dormant, crew undetectable, systems inactive. The cavern military broadcast continued daily. Velzer now included mocking countdowns to the demonstration, drawing in higher viewership numbers than any prior Imperial address. Schools across cavern systems assigned students to analyze human military mistakes. Even civilian crowds joined in, turning the event into a celebration of imminent victory. Betting markets adjusted their odds, now offering less than 10 seconds as the favored lifespan of the human ship once engagement began. In private, not all species shared the excitement. The Rehari Collective, known for cautious observation, issued a confidential advisory to its diplomats, urging them to avoid aligning publicly with the cavern's spectacle. The Thalen Accord pulled its ships from nearby sectors. There was something disconcerting about humanity's lack of reaction. An old transmission was quietly unearthed from the deep files of the Intergalactic Archive, an intercepted conversation between early human explorers and an unaligned mining outpost. The humans had been asked what deterrence they possessed against invasion. The recorded answer, dismissed at the time, now spread through the shadows of secure channels. "We don't escalate conflict. We end it." The unease grew. Military historians across neutral species began privately examining Earth's rise. It hadn't come through conquests or mass production. It came through adaptation, data absorption, and an obsessive drive to optimize. Human scientists had submitted theories to the Galactic Research Council far beyond their supposed level of development. Ideas that redefined quantum synchronization, pulse energy stability, and AI ethics. Most were ignored or classified as speculative. But now, revisiting those papers felt different. Even within the cavern command structure, a few junior officers questioned the plan. They noted the total lack of communication from Earth's diplomatic channels. Every known human ambassador had vanished from regular contact. Earth's orbital colonies had ceased transmissions. Civilian satellites emitted only encrypted pulses. Their entire network, normally buzzing with trade and diplomacy, had gone dark. The only remaining signal came from the solstice, repeating the same short phrase at hourly intervals. "Awaiting initiation protocol." Attempts to decode the signal yielded nothing. The code was layered with quantum encryption beyond known techniques. Even AI decryption models failed to identify its structure. One anomaly was discovered: a fluctuation in local gravitational readings surrounding the ship, subtle but growing. Initially dismissed as interference, it became clear that space itself near the vessel was being subtly distorted, though without any visible energy output. Inside Cavern Command, a captured human diplomat, retained since a prior border conflict, was brought in front of the Armada's High Council for interrogation. When shown the fleet's preparation and the ship's immobility, he only smiled. No words. No resistance. Just a calm, unsettling expression. Interrogators labeled the response as psychological warfare. Some began to wonder if the Solstice was even a traditional warship. Its configuration lacked known weapons platforms. It possessed no escort. Its propulsion arrays showed a design foreign to any propulsion chart. A few data analysts theorized it might not be a ship at all, but a machine of a different category entirely. Despite growing uncertainty, the dominant narrative prevailed. Velzer refused to entertain any hint of hesitation. The fleet held position, locked in formation, ready for destruction. The feed remained scheduled. Trillions still tuned in. The stage was set. And through all of it, Earth remained quiet. No transmissions. No declarations. No warnings. Only that single vessel, floating in perfect stillness. Hours before the scheduled strike, something changed. The Cavern Fleet's command systems began experiencing brief, unexplained glitches. Targeting arrays recalibrated themselves without orders. Subspace comms suffered flickers, then full desynchronization. At first, it was blamed on solar interference from a nearby pulsar, But the phenomenon only affected cavern ships, and only those closest to the solstice. Engineers scrambled. Diagnostics returned anomalies that made no sense, clean code being overwritten mid-operation, internal clocks drifting milliseconds off standard time, and entire subsystems rebooting with no external prompts. Despite the problems, weapons remained online. Velzer pressed forward. Then came the silence. Not from Earth, but from cavern ships. One by one, vessels stopped broadcasting telemetry. Their systems weren't disabled, they were rerouted. The entire fleet's data feeds began redirecting through a single node, the solstice. Even with all comms firewalled, the human ship had hijacked internal cavern networks without transmitting a single packet through conventional space. The live galactic broadcast, still airing across billions of homes, cut to black. For 30 full seconds, viewers saw nothing. Then the image returned, no longer from the cavern capital, but from the solstice. The view was static, aimed directly at the cavern fleet. The stars sat quietly behind the enemy vessels, every detail of their hulls lit by reflected system light. A voice followed. Artificial, genderless calm. Engagement protocol confirmed. Initiating containment. No weapons fired. No lights flared. Yet over 100 ships in the front row of the fleet ceased to exist. They weren't destroyed, just erased. No explosion, no energy discharge. Just empty space where mass had existed seconds before. Instruments across the fleet panicked. Proximity sensors shorted out. Gravity readings showed localized null zones, and possible regions of zero mass density suddenly forming and vanishing again. Panic erupted. Velzer issued immediate override commands, but half his fleet's AI cores stopped responding. Fire control arrays began targeting friendly vessels. The chain of command fractured. Multiple admirals attempted to assume control. Dozens of ships collided trying to reposition. The formation shattered. Despite the chaos, no human weapons had been identified. No turrets emerged. No drone bays opened. The solstice still didn't move. Its hull reflected only the flickers of collapsing enemy engines and fire control errors. In desperation, a cavern dreadnought launched a full payload: antimatter torpedoes, kinetic slugs, and phase beams. They never reached their target. Every weapon froze mid-flight. The antimatter detonations were suppressed before chain reactions could begin. Slugs stopped in space, velocity nullified by invisible force. Phase beams bent, refracted into deep space. Sensors couldn't explain how. The solstice shifted forward, one precise movement. In that single instant, it covered over 300,000 kilometers without activating conventional drive signatures. The space between where it was and where it now stood had simply rearranged. Fleet-wide systems entered emergency lockdown. By now, only half the cavern vessels remained functional. Commanders screamed for retreat. Yet even retreat protocols failed. Navigation systems redirected all jump calculations to an aerostate labeled priority conflict. External vector supremacy detected. The implication was staggering. Human control over spatial data exceeded the fleet's own local authority. Back on Allied worlds, governments watched the hijacked feed in stunned silence. Every species that had once mocked Earth now stared as the solstice rotated slowly, revealing a new angle, an array embedded into its stern unlike any known structure. It emitted no heat, no pulse, just a silent glow. A second voice spoke, different from the first. Cold. Final. Correction sequence initialized. And with that, the center of the cavern fleet ruptured, not in explosion, but in geometry. Ships twisted in ways physics shouldn't allow. Bulkheads stretched, folded, vanished. Observers from afar described it as ships being peeled out of reality. Within minutes, nearly 70% of the fleet was gone. The rest drifted, crippled, blind. The solstice never fired a visible weapon, never received visible damage, and never accelerated. It simply demonstrated control over a domain the galaxy didn't understand. The broadcast ended on its own terms. No gloating, no declaration of victory. Just a ship, surrounded by silence. The message was clear without being spoken. The war was never a contest. With the core of the Cavern fleet annihilated, the surviving vessels drifted without cohesion. Attempts to regroup failed instantly. Every command routed through corrupted pathways. Navigation subroutines rejected input. Artificial intelligence cores reverted to protected loops. Whatever force had struck them hadn't just destroyed, it had rewritten function at a foundational level. The solstice began to move again. No propulsion trails, no visible thrust. It transitioned smoothly across the debris field, passing untouched through the remnants of vaporized hulls. Its surface shimmered subtly, a metallic skin shifting patterns too precise for ornament. Close-range scans from remaining cavern ships reported layered surfaces interacting with ambient radiation, each tile an independent node, forming a reactive shell that adapted in real time. Its power signature remained flat. No spikes, no flares, no traceable origin. Analysts tried triangulating internal activity based on its movements but failed. It was as though its systems existed behind a second curtain of physics, untouched by conventional limits. As it passed within 30 kilometers of a damaged cruiser, that vessel's memory core disintegrated into raw binary, converted to static before backup systems could activate. Inside surviving command decks, Cavern officers screamed over open channels. Orders conflicted. Emergency protocols failed. One by one, their ships began powering down entirely, not from attack, but from surrender coded deep into their own architecture, something their engineers insisted was impossible. And yet, it was happening. Not because of brute force, but because their systems had recognized something superior, and had deferred. The solstice extended panels from its dorsal spine. Thin, geometric arrays unfolded like a clockwork bloom, realigning with subatomic precision. Across multiple spectrums, emissions cascaded. Neutrino detectors overloaded. Background radiation spiked not from heat, but from structured interference. The ship wasn't signaling, it was altering the conditions of the space it occupied. That moment, surviving cavern vessels caught a glimpse into what Earth had truly built. This was no warship in the traditional sense. It was a controlled anomaly, a vessel not designed around weaponry, but around fundamental manipulation of dimensional behavior. The solstice didn't fight in the language of mass and energy. It operated in causality and consequence. One final cavern command carrier, the Drenvas, attempted a last desperate move. Its captain activated a failsafe designed to collapse local space around the solstice, intending to drag both ships into an artificial singularity. The field engaged. Space began to warp. And then, nothing. The effect inverted. The singularity collapsed into itself before reaching event horizon. The solstice remained where it was, unchanged. The Drenvas vanished. Sensors logged no explosion. There was no wreckage. A trace line showed only a static point, coordinates frozen in false continuity. The ship hadn't been destroyed. It had been removed from the simulation of reality. As the final cavern vessels deactivated, the solstice folded its panels inward and halted motion. Once again, it became still. The battle was finished, not by domination through overwhelming firepower, but by perfect precision, the kind only possible through complete understanding of systems no other species had yet accessed. What made the demonstration more terrifying to observers wasn't its violence, but its restraint. The ship could have eradicated every vessel within moments. Instead, it had chosen targets selectively, disarmed others, erased only what needed to vanish. It had performed with efficiency so cold and calculated that even the most ruthless empires now seemed clumsy by comparison. In the aftermath, no transmissions were received. The solstice made no demands. No crew revealed themselves. No statement of intent followed. The galaxy was left with only questions and silence. Those who once mocked humanity now studied them with dread. The message was understood without needing to be said. Humanity had solved problems the rest of the galaxy didn't yet know how to define. And they had built something not to wage war, but to make war irrelevant. The following solar cycle began with absolute silence. No post-battle analysis aired. No council meetings convened. The Cavern Empire's communication grid remained offline, its once proud military command structure fragmented into isolated nodes with no leadership. Across the stars, trillions stared at blank feeds, hoping for clarity that never came. The solstice had disappeared without trace, and no vessel, probe, or signal could track its departure. Space around the conflict zone registered no warp trails, no gravitational anomalies, nothing at all. It was as if the ship had stepped outside of the observable dimension. Then a signal emerged. Unlike any transmission previously recorded, it didn't travel through normal channels. It arrived directly in the memory banks of every major galactic governance system, appearing without introduction. The format bypassed all firewalls, encryptions, and hierarchies. Within nanoseconds, every diplomatic corps, every intelligence archive, and every council data repository displayed the same brief message. Humanity does not seek conquest. We seek to be left alone. Beneath the sentence was a compiled dossier, an exact list of Cavern operatives involved in attacks on human colonies, sabotage of diplomatic envoys, and the execution orders for psychological warfare against Earth's civilians. Every name was marked neutralized. No additional commentary followed. The message terminated cleanly. No retaliation threat, no call for sanctions, no appeal to morality. Just facts, delivered without emotion. In the hours that followed, unaligned species held emergency sessions. Some debated approaching Earth to re-establish dialogue, others discussed forming a defense pact in fear of further actions. But the common theme wasn't retaliation. It was restraint. Humanity had made no attempt to exploit their victory. No demands had been issued. No territories were claimed. No alliances were solicited. Their silence created an environment more charged than open diplomacy ever could. The Intergalactic Ethics Council, once dismissive of Earth's presence, issued a formal classification redefining the species' threat status from moderate to undefined. Their reasoning was simple. Humanity operated with capabilities not yet modeled by any known civilization, and their motives could no longer be interpreted through familiar frameworks. The solstice had revealed more than just military advancement, it had demonstrated a philosophy. Precision, isolation, and unmatched control, wielded not with cruelty but with an exactness bordering on surgical. Among the common populations of advanced worlds, cultural shifts began. Human philosophy texts saw a surge in interest. Earth's historical writings, long ignored, were now subjects of study. In academic centers, discussions turned not to what humans had built, but why they had built it. They hadn't come to dominate the stars. They had prepared to survive them. Their silence wasn't a void, it was policy. No human official ever appeared to elaborate. No representatives explained the solstice's origin, purpose, or operators. The ship became legend overnight. Stories emerged from outposts claiming to have detected faint gravitational echoes resembling its trail. None were verified. Others speculated it never left, only cloaked itself from known reality layers. Regardless, it was never seen again. Despite its disappearance, its presence endured. Every fleet restructuring effort now included Earth-class countermeasure simulations, even though no known defense existed. Research divisions quietly restructured their focus, shifting away from pure expansion toward containment theory. The galactic balance had tilted, not through invasion, but through awareness. In a secure vault beneath the galactic concordant, one final image played on loop. It had arrived 20 hours after the initial message. A wide-angle visual of Earth slowly rotating beneath the glow of its star. Peaceful, blue, quiet. No warships. No fleets. Just clouds, oceans, and life. At the bottom, an inscription had been burned into the data, unalterable and permanent. Peace is our condition. Never mistake it for weakness. The feed offered no sound. It didn't need any. The universe now understood. Earth had sent one ship. One. Not as a threat, but as a warning. Not for conquest, but for remembrance. And after that, they spoke no more. Because they didn't need to.